Good morning. Today I want to introduce you to the quilt that began my quilt pattern business. This is White Looms, and it's a special quilt to me because it began the business, which of course I didn't know at the time what would happen after I made this quilt. But I remember the inspiration for the quilt. We were at a movie, watching a movie in a theater probably 16 years ago or so. I don't remember the movie, don't remember even who was in it, but I saw a Afghan or a blanket or a quilt, something laying over the back of the couch. And when I saw that, it was in brown. It was brown. It had big whitish flowers on it. I thought it was so pretty. And I thought, oh, I want to make a quilt like that. When I left the theater, because I didn't want to forget it, I drew a little picture of it. And I thought, since then, I've often thought, it's a good thing that I try to remember my inspirations, write them down, make a picture or something as soon as possible, because otherwise they're gone. So I had this picture, and I decided mine wasn't going to be brown, it was going to be in red, because I had a whole lot of red fabrics at home, and I would use them all up. Of course, I did not use them all up, but they are basically a very simple pieced background made with reds that are half square triangles. And I used lots of different reds, some dark, some light, just half square triangles over the whole thing with a little sashing between the blocks. And then I think the quilt is more successful because it has lots of different reds, and the whites and creams and tans are varied too. I'm a big fan of using as many different varieties of a fabric or fabrics as you can. I think it makes a big difference. As I made this quilt, I was planning on hand appliquing it, which I did. And when you make a quilt that has a big pieced background and then you want to applique on top, it's really difficult if you try to applique a petal on by hand when you have a huge quilt. So I made the quilt in sections. There was a top section, and then a middle section, and then a big lower section. I recommend that if you are making a quilt like this. I did hand applique, and I probably would not do that today because it takes so long, but it can be done, and if you use machine applique, it would be just as beautiful. Then I also, before I sent it to the quilter, I wanted to make sure that these petals would puff out a little bit. So under each one of those, and I did not do anything fantastic with drawing these flowers. I don't really draw that well. I just made individual petal shapes and cut them out of fabric. But the petals under each one, I cut out the background and added a little piece of batting underneath. I didn't even need to glue it or anything because the background edges would hold that in. So that gives it a little bit of poof there. And then the quilter who quilted this quilt did an excellent job of quilting the background. It just, not, nothing that's going to distract, but adding these little bits in the petals really helped make them stand out and added some dimension to the quilt. So I think this type of a quilt is something anyone can make. I had this hanging in a quilt shop, And a lot of people liked it, and they said, oh, I would like to have a pattern for that. So that's how I decided, oh, you know, how hard would that be? I wrote the pattern, and this was in 2008. And so it became my very first pattern. It's not that hard to make. You could do that. And I have other quilts that are done with this type of construction. I call it PB&A, pieced blocks and applique. Sometime I'll show the other blocks too. Thanks. Thank you for watching. And if you feel like you learned something from this presentation, go ahead and hit that like button. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe so you'll be notified when the next video comes along.